Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wal aqibatu lil muttaqin wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulih Muhammadin wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd, fa'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. In this video we're going to look at the sort of legal age or capacity at which point somebody would be necessitated to fast in the month of Ramadan. Now there's two broad categories we need to consider here, and one is a minor child who goes through puberty and attains the age or enters the age of adolescence, and the second is a non-Muslim who reverts into the fold of Islam. Both of them would be required and be necessitated to sort of perform or sort of fast in the holy month of Ramadan. Now, one thing I wanted to say at this stage, I heard a number of misconceptions out there. I heard an opinion which came from America. Some scholars said that in certain countries where fasting is sort of for many hours a day. He cited a verse of the Quran Kareem from Surah Al-Baqarah, "La yukallifu Allahu nafsan illa wus'aha," and he said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't place a burden upon somebody on their shoulders that which they cannot bear. Now that verse in its own place, alhamdulillah, but what had happened is the scholar had misapplied this ruling, and he had said that fasting, because for children and people who are working and who have sort of busy lives, it's very difficult for them. They can't fast for the standard 17, 18, 16 hours, whatever it is, in different varied countries and varied places of the world. And he says because that would be something of a difficulty for them, they could and he sort of derived ruling and said they can fast from 9 to 5, the time that they work during the day, and that would be permissible for them, and it wouldn't be from dawn till dusk, which is the actual ruling according to all the pious ulama, the scholars, and the especially the Ahnaf ulama of the Hanafi school of fiqh, and all the other major schools for that matter. The Akabirin, they've always sort of, and they've never differed on this position. This has been the mainstream ruling, so it would be from the end of Sahur time till Maghrib Salah or Maghrib time, and that's the time you would refrain from eating and drinking and fasting in a normal way. Now these days we have people, and the reason why I mention this is because these days, because there's a lot of I've noticed, especially in countries like the UK, parents find it very difficult to ask their children to fast when they reach ahliyat al-wujub, which is legal capacity. Once they sort of go past puberty, they think it's far too difficult or strenuous on them to fast 15, 16, 17 hours a day without any food or water. Now, one thing I want to say is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is our creator, He's our manufacturer, and He knows His product better than anybody else. And if He has caused you to go through puberty at whatever age, because it can be different ages for different children, some earlier, some slightly later, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala indeed knows that it is okay for you, and He knows that you are able to fast. Of course, as I've mentioned in previous videos, Sharia law isn't something which suppresses the person in terms of the well-being and the health of the person is a paramount consideration. Where somebody's health does not allow them, where there's other problems which are causing detriment to their health or causing illness to the person, these people are not required to fast. Okay, so there's laws in place which govern that if it gets to such a stage where it's detrimental upon the body. Now, the common thing we find, people say it's too hard for children, we're not going to ask them to do it. But I tell you this, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it fard upon them, of course Allah knows the body, and Allah knows what that body is capable of. Now, in actual fact, skipping the 16, 17 hour thing, if we break it down and water it down, one thing we're going to find is ultimately you are eating and drinking 2 clear meals in the day. So you can eat before sahur, and of course, and then you would eat at the time of iftar. Now, it all comes with a little bit of organization, I say, and the right kind of diet. So if you're giving your children greasy foods, fatty foods, that kind of thing, naturally they are going to become a little bit more thirsty through the day, a bit more lethargic and things like this. You need to plan your foods properly, perhaps slow releasing carbs, brown breads, brown pita breads, or whatever it is for that whatever you would prefer. But a little bit of research into it, the right kind of food, to make sure that they're having enough water in the morning, and so they're able to last without any problem through the day. Of course, because you're moving away from your normal routine of eating 2 times, 3 times a day, naturally it is going to seem somewhat difficult and arduous at first, but actually you'll realize the body is perfectly fine, perfectly very capable, even young children, to be able to fast for these long hours. I know 9-year-old children who haven't even entered or at the age of adolescence, but voluntarily they've kept full fast, 30 fasts. I've seen that through these long hours, 17 and 18 hours, and they do it without a sweat. Your children are very, very capable, and as parents and as elders, we should actually be encouraging children, whether that's in the form at a very young age. We're making them fast for half a day, or we're getting them into the routine. And for example, we used to have something called, when I was a child, my parents used to encourage me to do something called a good boy rosa, and that was for half the day I wouldn't eat. This was when I was very, very young. And then following a certain time, they would allow me to eat and drink, but I would have to continue manners and etiquettes, etc., in accordance, with the theme of religion. It was designed to encourage discipline and awareness and educate, etc. So alhamdulillah, we as parents have got an obligation. We would much rather our children have 15, 16 hours of difficulty now than go in the afterlife, and where something was fard upon them, have to pay the price. And you'll be aware from these videos that actually if you miss a fast purposely when it is fard upon you, firstly this is something which is fard that you're leaving out, and just to make it up in terms of kafara, you're looking at 60 fasts, consecutive fasts that you'll have to perform just to make that up. Now, another thing I wanted to bring to your attention, science actually backs this idea. 2 meals a day, they say, is if somebody can live, in fact, they say you can live a very, very healthy life with just 2 meals a day. And so it's not a surprise, in our society, the way we are, the way, the lifestyle that we're accustomed to, we do tend to overeat. And that's why we find ourselves in positions of, being overweight and obesity, and with all the sort of associated illnesses. 2 times a day is actually very, very sort of healthy, and it's more than enough that you need to survive. And effectively, that's what it is. It is 2 hours a day. So alhamdulillah, we should actually be encouraging bravery in our children, promoting them, even if that means a couple of months beforehand, cleaning up the diet, getting used to shorter fast in the winter period, or sort of towards the run-up, even if it's once a week or twice a week, and on the days of Monday and Thursday, which was a sunnah of Rasul Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yes, all the benefits aside and everything associated aside, ultimately we should sort of implant in the heads of our children and everybody else who's fasting is ultimately for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if we follow these rules, and we think of it in the way that I've explained, you will find that there will be no troubles, inshallah. Of course, with this, as I've mentioned, other medicinal sort of issues or medical related problems, then of course the Sharia allows uzr, and it allows for excuse for those people not to fast in their given circumstances. But generally you'll find that children are able to go to school, have quite a physical day as they do, busybodies, etc., and still able to fast in the month of Ramadan. And actually, one thing you will find, people say, they become very tired, they become very weak. Towards the end of Ramadan, you will, as you would have noticed based on experience, we actually, come away from that lethargic feeling. We become more energetic, we have more energy, and we're able to sort of, do much more in the day, because this is some of the effects, alhamdulillah, some of the benefits that we have in our body, because, the system's being purified, it's being detoxed, and, we're actually performing much more because we are eating, or sort of we're having this time to replenish sort of the internal system in the way that it should be, and we're actually going away from previous sort of things that we're accustomed to in our diet, which are actually bad for our health. Now, the second thing that I wanted to mention was with regards to a child who enters the age of adolescence, or a non-Muslim who reverts to Islam. If this was, let's say, on the 15th of Ramadan, and somebody was to find themselves in that position, at that point that the minor or reaches the age of majority and goes through puberty, he wouldn't be required, according to Islamic Sharia law, to make up the first 15 fasts in the month of Ramadan, because at that time it wasn't the law wasn't upon him in the way that it was upon somebody who has gone through or sort of gone through the sort of process of puberty and attained the age of adolescence. In the same way, for the non-Muslim who is an adult, who previously was non-Muslim and kafir, at the time that they accept Islam, whether even if it be on the 22nd of Ramadan, they will not be required to make up the previous fast. Only the fasts sort of going forward will be obligated on them. And for both of those people, again, the same would apply if if they reverted to Islam or attained the age of adolescence during a fast, sort of midday for instance, they wouldn't be required to make that particular fast up, but then all the fasts going forward inshallah would be upon them. They would be the ones that they would need to perform. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ الْمُبِينُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability and facility, have the strength and follow the deen of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ الْمُبِينُ.